In my past life, my husband faked his death, spent my money, and lived happily ever after with his first love, surrounded by children and grandchildren. I was handed over to a eunuch by the old madam and tortured to death. Reborn. I turned the tables and drugged the old madam. Watching her disheveled and sobbing, I sneered, "Oh, so this is your thing, huh?" My brother-in-law and sister-in-law came begging me. I sent the sister-in-law to the military camp and the brother-in-law to learn needlework. When my husband came looking for me after I cut off his funds, I stroked my pregnant belly and ordered my people to throw him out. What fraudster dares to impersonate the Marquis? My husband is alive and well. What a wonderful feeling it is to hold the fate of others in your hands, one madam. The old lady requests your presence. The urging voice of the matron echoed in my ears. I had yet to recover from that icy, snowy hell. 10 years had passed since I married into the Marquis's household. Shortly after the wedding, my husband passed away unexpectedly, leaving me a widow for a decade. I used my own dowry to support the entire family, tirelessly planning for the future of the declining Marquisate. Just as I was finally able to catch my breath, the household decided to arrange for clan members to enter the court as officials. In my previous life, the old lady begged me to willingly offer myself to the Eastern Depot's director in exchange for opportunities in the Marquisate's official career. But what I received in return was not gratitude. Instead, after the Marquis's household rose to prominence, they locked me away in a cold, desolate courtyard for the sake of their so-called dignity, leaving me to freeze and starve to death. As the daughter of the wealthiest man, I died wearing nothing but thin clothes and clutching a frozen, ice-cold cornbread, like a beggar. Meanwhile, they spent my money and walked the path I had paved, enjoying a smooth journey through life. My heart couldn't help but ache. Fortunately, I have been reborn, returning to the day that decided my fate. Caressing the warm and comfortable brocade robe on my body, I thought, in my past life, I managed to preserve the Marquis manor. In this life, I will destroy it. Madam, please hurry. The superintendent will be leaving soon. If you don't show up, it will make the Marquis manor seem lacking in etiquette. They weren't really worried about the Marquis manor lacking etiquette. They were afraid that if the superintendent left, they wouldn't be able to latch onto this powerful connection. I remember in my past life, I was unwilling, but the old lady earnestly advised me. Spending a night of bliss with the superintendent is a heavenly blessing. If I weren't so old, I would have wanted to serve the superintendent myself. Let's grant the old lady's wish this time. 2. In the room, only the anxious old lady remained. Seeing me arrive, she quickly gestured for me to sit down. The governor said he was feeling unwell and went to rest first. Let's wait a moment. It's cold outside, so have some tea first. Although the Marquis's estate had declined, the old lady still regarded herself as a descendant of the royal family and looked down on me, a merchant's daughter. She believed I was marrying above my station, and even though the estate had only survived thanks to my support, she never felt the slightest gratitude. Every time she saw me, she acted superior and refused to look me in the eye. This time, her enthusiasm toward me wasn't because she wanted to continue persuading me, but because she had drugged my tea. She planned to make the rice cooked force the situation and then say a few high-sounding words, like how my deceased husband would thank me, how it was all for the Marquis estate, and make me accept my fate. In my past life, she did the same thing, forcing me to accept it, and in the end, she even threw the blame on me, refusing to admit she had drugged me, claiming instead that I had offered myself willingly, and that she couldn't even hold me back. In that case, daughter-in-law will go fetch a physician for the superintendent. Or else they'll say our Marquis estate lacks propriety. As I spoke, I made to leave, and the old lady grew anxious, reaching out to pull me. I pretended to stumble, and we both fell to the ground. Oh dear, mother, are you all right? The maids and nannies outside were drawn in by my loud cries and quickly helped the old lady up. I held out a teacup to apologize. Mother, it's all my fault as your daughter-in-law. Please have some tea to calm your nerves. The old lady wanted to scold me, but seemed to think of something and held back. She glanced at the table, noticed my cup was still there, and only then took the teacup and drank. But she didn't know that I had switched the 2 teacups in the commotion. So the one she drank was the one with the drug. At this moment, the maids and nannies withdrew, leaving only me and the old madam in the room. It seemed the entire Marquise household knew what fate awaited me next, everyone except me. But I didn't care. After all, it's best to hold one's own destiny in one's own hands. I helped her into bed and pulled the blanket over her head, just like in my past life. Done. 3. I hummed a tune as I returned to my courtyard, asking my maid Ziying to bring a stool. Miss, why are you so happy? Ever since. I haven't seen you smile like this. Ziying was my dowry maid. She had watched me transform from a carefree young lady of a wealthy family into a bitter widow tormented by the trivialities of daily life. My brow never once relaxed. As a result, though I was not yet 30, I already had several deep frown lines on my forehead. I had just finished eating a slice of watermelon when I heard a burst of angry shouting. The sound came from far away, but I could still clearly discern the various emotions it carried: rage, disappointment, and even murderous intent. I quickly threw away the watermelon rind in my hand, and the wrinkles on my forehead instantly smoothed out. Pretending to know nothing, I followed the crowd with Ziying to the old lady's courtyard. At the courtyard entrance, there were already layers upon layers of maids and servants gathered around, far more enthusiastic than when it came to work. When they saw me coming, they automatically made way, and I immediately spotted the governor rushing out of the room, dressed in light clothing. I quickly covered my own eyes, and also helped Ziying cover hers, afraid she might see something inappropriate. The governor's furious voice rang in my ears. Do you no longer wish to receive the imperial favor of your Marquis household? Sending an old woman to deal with me, I spread my fingers just enough to confirm that the governor had already fastened his clothes, and only then did I lower my hand. Not old at all, not old at all. Mother is only 42, has had only one child in her lifetime, still retains her charm, and has long harbored feelings for the governor. I rubbed my hands together like an overly fawning madam. The governor's expression softened a bit, but he hadn't fully accepted it yet. Your Excellency has always been feasting on delicacies from land and sea. I imagine you must be tired of them by now. Occasionally switching things up, though it may be coarse, it's refreshing, and most importantly, it comes with experience and an understanding of you. Were you satisfied just now, Your Excellency? I winked and arched my brows, successfully making His Excellency recall the scene from moments ago. To ensure His Excellency's satisfaction, the old madam had gone out of her way to learn his preferences and prepared all sorts of implements, even more abundant than what he usually used himself. She put great effort into it. It was quite a feat for a widow to know so much. Aside from the old madam's age, it truly hit the mark for His Excellency. Nothing in this world is perfect, and His Excellency understood that well. After all, what good was it to wield power over the realm when he couldn't even perform as a man, relying only on aides to fulfill certain obsessions? The superintendent snorted lightly. You, young lady, are quite sensible. All for the Marquise estate, you see. Our Marquise estate has shown great sincerity. Even the old lady has personally stepped in. I signaled Ziying to enter the room. At this moment, how could the old lady, the leading lady, remain unconscious? For Ziying called out for a long time with no response, and then, after a crisp slap, the old lady slowly came to. Where am I? Congratulations, madam, on your second spring. I just love Ziying's cleverness. What do you mean? The old lady's voice trembled. Through the crack in the door, I saw her face turn green the moment she saw the tools on the table and the marks on her own body. What's going on? Shouldn't it be? When she saw me at the door, the old lady swallowed the rest of her words. I joyfully rushed in, sat by the bed, tucked her in, and wiped away non-existent tears. Mother, you are truly righteous, willing to sacrifice so much for the Marquise estate. To be cautious, I blew out the candle before leaving. The superintendent loves to torment people in the dark. If it weren't for the dripping wax at the end, he wouldn't have found out. The old lady hasn't even endured 1/10 of what I suffered in my past life, and she's already unable to bear it. Was it you who switched the secret medicine? What secret medicine? Mother, what are you talking about? Our Marquise mansion is a noble household. There's no such thing as a secret medicine. Are you saying you are going to drug me, your daughter-in-law? The old lady, ignoring her aching body, covered my mouth and said, "Daughter-in-law, what are you saying? Of course there's no secret medicine. That won't. His concerns the reputation of our Marquis' estate. Any random physician could examine and find out. No. It's just that I admire the governor and I willingly offered myself." The old lady gritted her teeth, with a hint of pitiful charm about her. "What did you say? I can't hear you." The old lady flushed red and repeated herself. But I still couldn't hear her. Finally, the old lady shouted in a fit of pique, "I said I offered myself willingly." Only after shouting did the old lady realize that a circle of servants was gathered outside the door, and they had all heard her. "Rest assured, mother. They are all trusted confidants of the Marquis' household. They certainly won't spread this around." I patted her shoulder to comfort her, just as she had comforted me in a past life. "The daughter-in-law thanks you on behalf of the Marquis' mansion and my husband. You have given the mansion a chance to live, and we will all remember your kindness." I spoke the words she had said in her past life, not giving her a chance to react. After all, the Grand Overseer hadn't had his fill of fun yet. I stood in the courtyard and turned back, only to see the Grand Supervisor closing the door with a beaming smile. That smile had been the nightmare of countless nights in my previous life. This time, it's someone else's turn to taste this overwhelming fortune. The Marquis' residence remained quiet for several days. And then the court indeed began to pay special attention to the household. However, unlike the previous life, there was no joy or celebration. "This is way too hypocritical. When I sold my body, they were overjoyed, but when the old madam sells hers, it's like they've lost a mother. No. We must all be happy together," so I cut off the Marquis' mansion's coal allowance. Everyone was so cold they could only stand in the sun, rubbing their hands and stamping their feet, looking from afar as if they were dancing. Over the years, the Marquis' mansion has been eating and drinking at my expense. I've supported over 100 people, yet I've scrimped and saved myself. It's simply outrageous. These past few days, heavy snow has been falling. I had Ziying prepare a hot pot and send someone to buy top-quality lamb from the grasslands, hanging it on a rack for easy slicing and cooking. The room was filled with steaming warmth, and I had Ziying add another charcoal brazier. "Miss, why are you so afraid of the cold this year?" Ziying, wearing a thin cotton robe, was so warm she was almost sweating. "Because I don't want to freeze to death. I never want to experience that freezing feeling again. "Miss, what nonsense are you talking? Quick, spit and say such unlucky things." Ziying scolded with a laugh. "You've been smiling a lot more lately, miss. And eating more too. You've gained weight." I picked up a slice of lamb with my chopsticks and put it in my mouth. The rich meat flavor, wrapped in the wonderful taste of the dipping sauce, swirled on my tongue. Why hadn't I realized before how delicious hot pot lamb was? All food tastes this good, except for that cold, hard cornbread. I was eating with relish when the maidservant hesitantly came to report, "Madam, the second master and the eldest miss are kneeling in the courtyard, saying they wish to see you." I wiped my mouth. Couldn't hold out any longer, could they? After eating and drinking my fill, I put on my cloak and went to the courtyard. The snow was heavy, just like the day I died. Looking at my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, their shoulders were covered with snow. I remember that when I died, I was completely buried under the snow, and no one in the mansion noticed until a few days later when the temperature rose and the snow melted, revealing my body. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law, both pampered and spoiled, had never endured such hardship. Their bodies began to tremble from the cold. But as soon as I came out, they immediately straightened their backs. "Sister-in-law, our mother is ill and requests your presence." They put on a stern expression, deliberately provoking me like this, afraid that I might refuse to go. I still remember that in my past life, my brother-in-law wanted to join the military camp as a deputy general, but he simply wasn't cut out for it. At the time, the general was an old friend of my father's. To get me to help, the old lady made my brother-in-law kneel in the courtyard. Leading troops into battle is a serious matter. It's not something you can just do on a whim. Besides, ever since my husband died, The old lady had doted excessively on my brother-in-law. He spent his days idling among women. Let alone fighting in war, she had never even touched a blade or a spear. The only thing he had touched the most was women's hands. The old lady knew I had a thin skin and thought that by pressuring me this way, I would eventually give in. But I am no longer the person I used to be. I am Neo-Hura shunning, and I won't fall for this trick. Fine, I'll go over right now. I went and came back. By the way, you must be freezing kneeling there. Rub your hands together to warm up. I thought the old lady was faking illness, but it turned out she was genuinely sick from the cold. As soon as I entered the room, it was as cold as an ice cave. The old lady lay in bed, covered with several layers of quilts, while the maids and nannies beside her were hopping on their feet, looking quite lively. Zing promptly draped a mink cloak over me and handed me a warm hot water bottle. I sat by the bedside, tucking the corner of the blanket around her. This room of yours is really cold. Before the old matriarch could even speak, I could hear the chattering of her teeth. Shoo, shunning, we've run out of charcoal recently. You need to buy some as soon as possible. In my past life, I strictly adhered to my duties, treating the Marquis's residence as my own home, sparing no effort in worrying and toiling. Not only did the old matriarch fail to acknowledge me, but knowing that I had no family to rely on, she relentlessly coaxed me into handing over my dowry. She insisted on the best and most expensive items for daily necessities, even burning charcoal that cost 10 taels of silver per piece, animal charcoal mixed with spices. That wasn't burning charcoal. It was practically burning money. But in my past life, I was filial and went along with it all. Oh, look at my memory, I completely forgot about this. Someone, bring the charcoal quickly. The charcoal was lit, and black smoke billowed everywhere, making me cough uncontrollably. I quickly moved away from the direction of the smoke, but the old lady was too ill to get out of bed, and the black smoke drifted straight toward her bedside. Cough, cough, shunning, cough, cough, this charcoal is no good, mother. Please bear with it. There are too many places where money is needed. You see, Chao Qing and Manwo are getting older, and I plan to find them a way out. I've already thought it through. One will spend a few years training in the military camp, and the other will be taught by a few matrons. Marrying into a prince's mansion won't be a problem. My words struck a chord with the old lady. Her eyes, which had been listless just moments ago, suddenly lit up as if with a final burst of vitality. Really, shunning? You truly are a fine daughter-in-law of the Marquis's household. In the future, we'll erect a memorial archway for you. A memorial archway? In my past life, I didn't even have a grave or a tombstone. I was wrapped in a straw mat and thrown into a mass grave, torn apart by wild dogs, not even leaving a complete corpse behind. When I returned, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were already gone. The maid said they knelt for a while and then left. Fine, at least if they fell ill, my goodwill wouldn't have been wasted. Just like in my past life, I mobilized all my connections and money and finally managed to arrange everything properly for the two of them. Before their departure, the old lady and the two of them bid farewell with deep mother-child affection. Mother, don't worry. My sister-in-law is doing this for my own good. After a few years of training in the military camp, I'll have achieved something. That's right, mother. Once I become a princess, I'll take you to enjoy a life of comfort. In my past life, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law also played a part in my tragic death. Although I was framed by the old madam, I never treated them harshly. On the surface, they acted obediently, constantly leeching off me, but behind my back, they called me a venomous woman, claiming I made their lives miserable. I still remember the day I was banished to the cold courtyard. Zhou Chaoqing stood at the door, listing my crimes. You venomous woman. You wanted to drive my sister and me out so you could take over the Marquis' estate. You made us suffer so much. You brought this all on yourself. They got the benefits but still played the victim. If it weren't for me, how could they have had such bright futures? The carriage to pick us up was one black and one pink. I stopped Zhou Chaoqing, who was about to board the black carriage. No, you're getting on the wrong one. Zhou Chaoqing was puzzled. Isn't this the military camp's carriage? I smiled and said, yes. You thought the military camp was too tough, didn't you? You felt that your sister-in-law, was deliberately making things hard for you, trying to monopolize the Marquis' mansion. So, your sister-in-law has realized her mistake. I don't have many virtues, but I do know how to correct my mistakes. You'll go learn the qin, chess, calligraphy, and painting, come home every day, and be surrounded by women. I pushed Joe Manuel back onto the black carriage. Didn't you say your sister-in-law insulted you? Turning you into nothing but an accessory to please men, so your sister-in-law thought it over and decided to send you to the military camp. The future of the Marquis' estate will all depend on you. Nowadays, my life in the Marquis' estate is getting more and more comfortable. Every few days, the superintendent comes to the estate to spend time with the old lady, and later, he started coming every other day. The estate's fortunes have been improving, with all kinds of government subsidies fully provided, so I no longer need to supplement anything. That day, I was enjoying pastries from the palace while reading a letter from General Uncle. Joe Manuel arrived at the military camp still trying to put on the airs of a marquis's daughter. Every day, she would apply heavy makeup and rouge, and at night, she would order the soldiers to heat bathwater for her. If not that, she would complain about the food being unpalatable, bringing all the habits of the Marquis' estate into the camp. At first, the soldiers tolerated her out of respect for the general. But later she went so far as to claim that the general, her uncle, had harassed her. The incident began when Joe Manuel failed to maintain the proper stance during horse riding drills, and the general tapped her leg with his foot. She threw herself to the ground, rolling around and making a scene, threatening to report it to the emperor and ruin the general's reputation in his old age. When I arrived at the camp, Joe Manuel was sitting in the central command tent, hurling insults at the general, her uncle, with language so foul it rivaled that of a market shrew. I have no idea where she learned such words. The general, his face dark and grim, had not yet spoken when I entered. Joe Manuel, suddenly shedding her earlier belligerence, burst into tears, looking as pitiful as a pear blossom in the rain. Sister-in-law, you're finally here. I've been bullied so terribly, you must stand up for me, or my honor will be ruined. Then how will you explain to my brother, how will you explain to mother? And how will you explain to the ancestors of the Marquis' household? Those three explanations were delivered with such force, immediately elevating the stakes. Unfortunately, I wasn't buying it anymore. Honor, Manuel. You're right, we are relatives of the imperial family. How could we let someone take advantage of us? It just so happens I've invited a physician and a matron. Let the matron examine you. Joe Manuel had no idea what I was up to. She clutched her chest and said, Sister-in-law, what are you doing? There's no need for an examination. He only touched my leg. I pressed her down onto the stool with my own hands. Not even your legs, our Marquis' daughter is far too precious. If anything goes wrong in the future, how would I explain to your brother, how would I answer to mother, and how would I face the ancestors of the Marquis' household? I gave a signal, and the physician stepped forward to take her pulse. Before he could even finish stroking his beard, his face turned pale, and he dropped to his knees. What do you have to say, madam? Madam. I dare not speak. It's all right, the lady will back you up. Speak quickly. The physician stammered, It's a sign of pregnancy. With that, he kowtowed to the ground. A hush fell over the tent. The general uncle said, shunning, It's not that your uncle. The doctor quickly added, It's been over 3 months now. Joe Manuel had only been at the military camp for half a month, so even with overtime, it wouldn't have been possible. That means she was already pregnant while still at the Marquis' residence. The child's father was a poor relative staying at the Marquis' residence under the old lady's care, and he was also considered Joe Manuel's cousin. The old lady leaned on the couch, crying and cursing, You worthless thing, how could you so easily give away your innocence, and to that good for nothing? Joe Manuel also cried, but not out of sadness, it was because the old lady had slapped her and it hurt so much she cried. Mother! Didn't you say you were a relative of the imperial family, that your family are all nobles? Cousins can be together, so how can you belittle my cousin like this? I've seen this cousin before, smooth talking and slick. The type who's best at deceiving young girls. How did I give birth to such a wretched child? I might as well die. With that, she got out of bed and tried to dash her head against a pillar. I sneered. I wasn't going to fall for that again. In my past life, the old lady stopped me. And as I watched the two of them crying uncontrollably, I made a snap decision. I had Joe Manuel abort the child, and in the end, she married the prince and became his consort. Joe Manuel held a grudge against me for that, believing that I was the one who killed her child and prevented her from being with her cousin. How could I possibly do such a despicable thing again in this life? The old lady saw me sitting there with my legs crossed sipping tea, showing no intention of stopping her. In the end, she had no choice but to stop on her own, clutching a pillar and wailing, "My fate is truly miserable." After a couple of dry sobs, she kept watching for my reaction. Seeing that I wasn't taking the bait, she finally showed her true colors and asked, shunning, "What do you think we should do? They want me to play the villain just like in my past life. Don't they know what to do? Hey, just need someone to take the blame." Under the old lady's expectant gaze, I suddenly stood up. Oh. My stomach hurts. I must have drunk too much herbal tea. "Mother, your room is too cold." "Zing, go fetch the doctor quickly." 10 days passed one by one, and Joe Manuel's belly grew bigger. She could no longer go to the military camp. But she still didn't care and continued to go out on dates with her cousin every day. Meanwhile, someone had caught wind of the news that the Marquis's daughter was pregnant out of wedlock and shamelessly being intimate with her cousin in public spread throughout the capital. Even the details of how long they hugged and how many times they kissed were known with perfect clarity. As if someone had been right there. What's more, illustrated booklets appeared, and for a time these pamphlets sold even better than erotic prints. The old lady was so furious that she spat blood on the spot. Using this as leverage, the cousin forced Joe Manuel to marry him, demanding a generous dowry while offering no betrothal gifts at all. If she refused, he would leave the Marquis's estate. After all, Joe Manuel was already close to giving birth, and an abortion would be very dangerous. Moreover, since everyone knew about their affair, she would have no chance of remarrying in the future. Gnashing her teeth, the old lady had no choice but to agree in the end. I learned of this news just as I finished painting the last piece. Although the Marquis's estate had recently had enough to eat and drink, it had only just broken even. With no extra assets to serve as a dowry, the old lady once again set her sights on me. She truly never learns from her mistakes. I agreed immediately, and only then did the old lady show a hint of joy. Soon, the day of the wedding arrived. The old lady urged me several times before I finally appeared, taking my time. Shunning, "Where are your dowry items?" Seeing the empty space behind me, the old lady grew anxious, but with so many guests watching, she dared not show it. "And why are you dressed in all white? Such bad luck." I lifted my white cloak, pulled out Zhou Chaoji's memorial tablet from inside, and collapsed in tears at the old lady's feet. "Mother, today is the anniversary of my husband's death. How could I not be heartbroken? On our wedding night, he died unexpectedly, leaving no children behind. As a widow, I've struggled to get by, and I simply have no money left to give Manuel as a dowry. You might as well sell my bones for oil." I cried and made a scene, giving the guests plenty of gossip to feast on. The old lady panicked. Is today really the anniversary of Chaoji's death? The fortune teller clearly said it was an auspicious day. I had bribed the fortune teller, specifically instructing him to say today was a good day. "Are you saying Chaoji died the wrong way? Should we dig him up and let him die again?" The old lady dared not, because she knew the coffin was empty. 11 Joe Manuel ended up getting married after all. However, she became the laughingstock of the entire city, first getting pregnant before marriage, then forcing her widowed sister-in-law to provide a dowry, and getting married on the anniversary of her brother's death. That day, I was visiting a brothel disguised as a man when I saw Joe Manuel, heavily pregnant, coming to catch her husband cheating. It looked like she was about to give birth soon. But I wasn't in the mood to pay attention to her at the moment, because I was waiting for someone. After a while, Joe Manuel's voice finally quieted down. Through the corridor window, I saw the courtesan supporting a man who was dead drunk. I paid the courtesan a large sum of money and helped the man into the room. In my past life, I had only seen him from a distance once, and I could tell he was tall and upright, with an extraordinary demeanor and handsome features. Seeing him up close now, he was even more attractive than from afar. If we were to have children, they would surely be outstanding. The next day, I left before he woke up. Who would have thought that before I could even get some sleep, the old lady sent someone to summon me? Sleepy-eyed, I went to her door and asked, "Mother, what's wrong now? Has the Grand Overseer abandoned you?" Yawning, I realized there were a few more people in the room. A woman was holding a crying baby, and a man sat beside the old lady, chatting cheerfully. When they saw me, they all turned to look. I couldn't help but laugh. Wasn't this my husband, who had been dead for 10 years? He had appeared a few years earlier than in my past life. Glancing at their plain, shabby clothes, I understood they were out of money. In my past life, I had always believed my husband died in an accident. In truth, he simply didn't like me. But he had to marry me to keep the Marquis afloat. So they came up with a plan. After the wedding, he would fake his death, leaving me to struggle alone to sustain the decaying household. Meanwhile, he lived a comfortable, secluded life with his first love, spending my money. Every month, the old lady had to pay out a large sum of money, claiming it was to support distant relatives. But it wasn't until she was on her deathbed that I learned all that money had gone to Zhou Chaoji and his first love, his delicate young wife. 12 The old lady's eyes darted away, but she couldn't hide the joy of a mother and son reunited. Shunning Jir was saved by Yin Yan, so he didn't die. Isn't it wonderful that the family is finally reunited? I am not part of their family. In my past life, after the Marquis' household had settled on the right path and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law had found stability, Zhou Chaoji came back to reap the rewards. That's wonderful. So my husband has pledged himself to her in gratitude. But I've heard that you and Miss Lee have known each other for a long time. What a twist of fate that you two could meet again like this. But outsiders certainly won't believe it. They'll say you two were secretly involved all along, and that you abandoned your new wife to elope. I spoke with such conviction that I managed to bluff the old lady. No, Shunning, let me explain. Oh dear, why is this child crying non-stop? Is it because there's no milk? Look how thin you are. Does your husband not let you eat enough? That shouldn't be the case. You two have hands and feet, so why aren't you out earning money? Li Yinyan's cheeks flushed bright red, and to make matters worse, the child kept crying. Embarrassed and furious, she pinched the child's thigh hard, and the crying instantly turned into a shriek. In her past life, Li Yinyan never had to lift a finger for household chores, well protected by Zhou Chaoji, who spent my money while looking down on my so-called reek of money. Every day was filled with romance and leisure, and she never even looked after the children. Now that I've cut off her funds, and the household can no longer afford servants or wet nurses, the harshness of real life has left her deeply resentful. Oh, why take your anger out on the children? I called out her little scheme. Li Yinyan shot Zhou Chaoji a resentful glance. Zhou Chaoji, who had been looking a bit downcast, immediately straightened his back at that, slammed the table with a smack, and pointed his finger at me. You Shunning, you slut. Consorting with eunuchs from the Eastern Depot, disgracing my Marquis' household. Now that I'm back, I won't allow you to continue tarnishing the family's reputation. I couldn't help it. I let out a snort of laughter. In my past life, Zhou Chaoji had also started blaming me the moment we met, because offering me to the Grand Supervisor was a plan he and the old madam had agreed upon together. However, since meeting in person was inconvenient, their correspondence only mentioned that the old madam would drug me and send me to the Grand Supervisor's bed. Later, the old madam became addicted to the pleasure and had no time to bother with him. So, what is the most valuable thing in the world? Information. 13 You Shunning. You wretched woman, how dare you laugh? Zhou Chaoji fumed. You're a widow, yet you willingly climbed into a eunuch's bed. Have you no shame before me, before the ancestors of the Marquis' estate? Someone like you should be drowned in a pig cage, are you sure? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the old lady's face turn black as she twisted her handkerchief. Since she had been with the governor, every move, every smile of hers carried a hint of a shy young girl's charm. It seems love truly nourishes one. Before I could say anything more, A servant announced the governor's arrival. You wretch, I'm still here, and you've already summoned your lover? It was all bluster and bravado. In my past life, I had seen the governor was a sycophant ready to drain every last bit of my value for more gain. Guards. Take you shunning to the cold courtyard. As soon as the words were spoken, the superintendent arrived with measured steps. Seeing the room full of people, his smile immediately faded. Toward men of lower status than himself, his instinct bred no goodwill. And he felt no need to show any deference. The superintendent strode over to the old lady and pulled her into his arms. Did you miss me, your superintendent? The old lady's aged face flushed with embarrassment as she made a few half-hearted attempts to push him away. The Grand Tutor laughed heartily. What, is there something to be shy about? Is there anyone in the entire Marquis's mansion who doesn't know you're my woman, as luck would have it? There actually was someone who didn't know. I suddenly remembered the topic we were just discussing. Who is it that was going to be drowned in the pond? 14. We stood outside the old lady's courtyard, listening to the faint sounds coming from inside. Zhou Chaoji's face turned green. Well. Green on behalf of his father. Truly a filial son. Shunning, listen to me, let me explain. I turned and walked away, with Zhou Chaoji following me all the way to the gate. Shunning, you've worked so hard all these years. From now on, Yan Yan and I will come back to help you. So you won't have to work so hard anymore. I ordered the servants to open the gate and said, Who are you? Zhou Chaoji froze, let out 2 awkward laughs, and said, It's me, Zhou Chaoji, your husband. Yan Yan. Come quickly and tell Shunning who I am. A man who constantly claimed she was his only one now shamelessly insisted on staying by another woman's side who could bear that. Li Yanyan's eyes reddened, as if she had suffered a great humiliation. I shook my head. Can't take this already? Sure enough, she's a hothouse flower, only good for fair weather, not for foul. The two of them are cut from the same cloth, neither has the right to point fingers at the other. That can't be. My husband is perfectly fine. And I'm already pregnant. You can't be the Marquis. I stroked my belly, hoping it would be strong enough so I could keep the child and get rid of the father. Zhou Chaoji had no token to prove his identity. He relied entirely on his family's recognition. Now the old madam was indulging in pleasure, Zhou Manwo had married out, and Zhou Chaoqing was busy embroidering the thousandly of rivers and mountains, striving to bring glory to the Marquis's household on the Emperor's birthday. Who would care about him now? Guards, throw these 2 impostors out. The servants were all newly replaced by me. They only knew me as their master. It's just a pity for the child blaming on his misfortune for being born to such unlucky parents. Zhou Chaoji stopped pretending. If the servants hadn't held him back, he would have come over to beat me up. I was so scared that I missed a step on the stairs. Oh no, I'm going to fall badly this time, aren't I? But the pain I imagined never came. I landed in a firm and warm embrace. Before I could even finish the word thank you, I swallowed it back down. What a coincidence. Isn't that the man I borrowed seed from the other day? He leaned close to my ear. Shunning, sister, you're still the same as when we were kids. Take what you want and run away without a trace. His name is Xie Yuan, my childhood sweetheart. After he turned 15, his family moved south. And he became the richest man in Jiangnan. This time, he returned to pay respects to his ancestors. His friends deliberately got him drunk to see if Xie Yuan, who had always remained chaste, might be a homosexual. Later, he redeemed a courtesan. In my past life, I only ever saw him from afar at the old mansion. After he returned to Jiangnan, I never saw him again. I thought I'd borrow his seed and never meet him again, but I never expected him to come looking for me. Fine, you Shunning, so this is your lover. You actually want to monopolize the Marquis's estate. Zhou Chaoji came at me with his fist raised, only to be kicked flying, and finally left sobbing while supporting Li Yanyan. Xie Yuan blocked the door I was about to close. I can provide a second time. Until you get pregnant. Zhou Chaoji refused to give up and filed an imperial complaint, but now the court is under the control of the Grand Steward. The Grand Steward has 2 favorite things, one is beautiful women, and the other is money. Coincidentally, I can provide both. But before I could make a move, Zhou Chaoji was beaten out of the palace and exiled to a desolate land for impersonating a noble. I was puzzled when I saw Xia Yuan walking over cheerfully, chatting and laughing with the Grand Supervisor. Grand Supervisor. Please stay. Here are the documents for the Jiangnan copper mine. You've worked hard. From then on, the Marquis' estate changed its surname to you. On the day Zhou Chaoji was exiled, I went to see him off. I bribed the officials, asking them to take good care of him along the way. I also took the opportunity to tell Zhou Chaoji a secret that he was completely incapable of having children. Impossible, impossible, you shunning, you're lying to me. As for whether it was a lie or not, that was up to him to decide. The first thing I did upon returning to the mansion was to marry off the old madam. Mother, now that the governor is willing to marry you, it's your blessing. Don't worry, I'll prepare a generous dowry for you, the old lady cried and wailed. But it was completely useless. Zhou Chaoqing came to make a scene with me, but unfortunately, I had already raised him to be a sissy, and his body had been drained by women. I'll show no substance. I knocked him out and sold him to the Nanfeng Pavilion, making a small profit. Anyway, the Marquis' residence now belonged to the Yu family, and no one cared what happened to the Zhou family. On the day of the wedding, the old lady refused to get into the sedan chair. Why didn't Manhua come? Oh, I forgot to tell you. A while ago, Manhua was beaten by her husband and had a miscarriage. 2 lives lost at once. The old lady burst into tears with a loud wail. I wiped her tears away and said, crying at a wedding is unlucky. From now on, your family can't help you anymore. You have to take good care of yourself. All right. The old lady was still heartbroken over Zhou Manwu. The matchmaker, afraid of delaying the auspicious hour, pushed the old lady into the sedan chair. I shook my head. Can't handle this already? If she found out that her eldest son killed his beloved wife on the road to exile and her youngest son became the top courtesan at the Southern Wind Pavilion, wouldn't she go mad? But I'm soft-hearted, I won't do that. With my 5-month pregnant belly. I had just stepped through the door when Xia Yuan arrived. Shunning, will you marry me? I'm willing to marry into the Marquis' household, with my dowry being all of the Xia family's assets. The Xia family's parents had passed away, leaving behind wealth that rivaled a nation's treasury. I nodded. I can think about it. After 10 months of pregnancy and a single day of childbirth, my son was granted the title of Marquis by the Emperor as soon as he was born. Xia Yuan also sent a congratulatory gift, all of his properties and land deeds. Shunning, have you made up your mind now? I looked at the young Marquis who was breastfeeding. All right, I'll make do. Don't worry. I'll keep working hard to earn money and support you and the child. I closed my eyes, that's more like it.